Hello, everybody. Welcome to the National Parents Union Nightly Restorative Check-In. As always, I am your host, Marisol Quevedo. I am the mother to Camerina, Emilia, and Sofia. I'm the daughter to Irma and Abraham. I'm the grandmother to Isabela Luna and Cynthia Iliana. And I'm the granddaughter to Camerina, Alejandro, Francisco, and Carmen. I'm also the wife to Daniel, the niece to Yolanda, and the sister to Alex, Atia, and Cameron. Ooh, it feels like it's been so long since I've been with you. We had the Veterans Holiday last Wednesday, and I think it was really because the night before, I think I was on every night of that week except for Friday. And so I just feel like I've been gone from you. So I'm very happy to be with you tonight, as always. Okay, today is Monday, November 16th, and there's some thoughts that I want to share with you. First, I would like to announce, this was already shared this morning and throughout the day, but our next National Parents Union Town Hall is going to feature a conversation with Dolores Huerta. Dolores Huerta started the farm workers the farm AFL-CIO along with Cesar Chavez, and was an integral part of the farm workers movement. She has this beautiful quote that is floating around right now with our NPU announcement. She said that every moment is an organizing opportunity, every person a potential activist, every minute a chance to change the world. So it's going to be a really beautiful evening with her. She's going to be speaking. We will be releasing the results of our poll. We also have some special information from two educators that we'll be sharing, and then the conversation with Dolores Huerta. So please make sure that you register. You can go to www.nationalparentsunion.org to sign up. So with that, I want to go ahead and move into our breathing technique. So remember, we do 4, 7, 8. We inhale for 4 seconds, we hold for 7, and we release for 8. And I'm going to go ahead and, as always, I'll say the numbers, I'll do the countdown for us. So your job is to just breathe. And we do this for a round of 4 times. So we do 4, 7, 8. 4 inhale, 7 hold, 8 release. Then 4 inhale, 7 hold, 8 release. 4 inhale, 7 hold, 8 release. 4 inhale, 7 hold, 8 release. So we start by putting our feet firmly on the ground. And if you want to close your eyes, please do so. If you want to just look down at the floor, stare at a spot, put your hands gently on your lap. Take a breath in, release. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Thank you for joining me. Always remember that breathing technique is available to you at all times. I set a timer for about 1 minute and 24 seconds, so it's a little bit longer than the technique takes. But that really helps me in setting that pace, which I think is important because it can take a while to get used to that the holding and then that measured release and then that intake. If at any time you get thrown off of that pattern, just return back to your normal breath and then start it over again, and keep going. And as I've shared, I was using this technique a lot for many, many weeks to help me go to sleep because it instantly relaxed me. I've also started using this technique at the encouragement of Dr. Anjali, who showed it to us on this show during the first week that we came on the air in March. During transitions. So as I'm moving from one workflow to the next, or even starting a meeting, I've been using that technique, and it just helps recenter and ground me. So there was one more thing I wanted to share with you. And this came to me. It was something that was written by a friend of my dad's, and it was something that I just really wanted to share because I think it's something else that really helps ground me. The reason why I introduce myself the way that I do at the start of each show, and I said this many, many times, but I do it because I recognize that me being in the space, in any space that I go in, I don't go in alone. I go in fueled by the love, by the experiences, by the prayers that have been sent to me and have created me since before I was even thought of. So the prayers of my ancestors, the prayers of my elders, the prayers of my parents. And I also recognize that I carry those prayers for our future ancestors. And so when I read what Steve wrote, I just thought I felt like somebody needed to hear it today. So let me, sorry, I have it on my phone. So Stephen Esquivel is a Native American. I know that he's held some positions within his tribe, and I believe in some community or different tribal affiliations. He currently lives in Denmark, but he is from a reservation here in San Diego. He wrote, "My dearest friends, family, I have just come in the house for meditating and praying and was given this thought, this realization, these words, which I now pass to you. If you see anything within yourself, you should see this about you. You should see your prophets, your chiefs, your warriors for God in life, your ancestors, and yourself. Why? Because you are part of the circle and the spirit of life. And as such, all is within you. You just need to open your eyes, your hearts and spirits, and know and see that you are a part of it all. You are a part of life and creator who has come before you and all which is a part of you now." And he signed it off Hummingbird. Just a reminder, and I don't necessarily think, not everybody has the belief in God, but I think in that belief in self, and that belief in goodness, that belief in trying, to be the best version of ourselves, and that belief that everybody is on that same track while we're here on this life, I think is important. So with that, I want to welcome our guest. Let me hit this button. And so I would like to introduce everybody to Ari Honovar. And Ari, I'm so excited to have you on. We have been meaning, I think, to touch base for 2 years now, if not more. Yeah. But Ari, if you could please introduce yourself to our audience and please share anything that you would like. So if you want to talk about all of it, yourself, your family, your passion, your loves, even the challenges that you have, your work, anything that you would like to share with us.
Thank you so much, Marisol. What a beautiful prayer and what a grounding breathing exercise. I'm the founder of Rumi with a View, dedicated to building music and poetry bridges across war-torn and conflict-ridden borders. I took refuge from war-torn Iran in the US at the age of 14. And that's one of the reasons I care deeply for the plight of refugees and political dissidents. My background is that I left Iran in the middle of political oppression, besides the 8-year war with Iraq that killed 1 million people and destroyed many more lives. Government crackdowns didn't spare teenagers from execution. So my parents got me out. And music and dancing was illegal at the time. So we had very few options to deal with the horrific stuff that was going on around us. And then I moved to the US without my parents at the age of 14. And I was so homesick. And that's when I really understood the value of community. That's what I really appreciate about the prayer that you just recited. What a beautiful way to orient ourselves in a community of not only our ancestors, but all of our relations, living and visible and invisible. And so to cope with depression at the age of 14, I danced a lot. And now, as a musical ambassador of peace, I bring music and dancing to asylum seekers who are stuck in Mexico, in Tijuana, as part of the Stay in Mexico policy, which was enacted by the Trump administration. Music and dancing in community setting provides a way not to only exercise and have fun, which is most refugees don't really get a chance to have fun, but it also boosts immunity, reduces anxiety, depression, and even mitigates effects of PTSD. Also, the creator of Rumi's Gift Oracle cards, which is a way to bridge elements of Western tarot and Persian practices of poetry divination. And I have a drop Poems Not Bombs, which is another way to build cultural bridges between people of Iran and people of US, since the two countries don't have diplomatic relations. I'm on the board of directors of Gente Unida, focusing on migrant children, and I have a novel coming out next year.
And Ari, you're also a mother.
I am, yes.
And how old are your babies?
I have a 12-year-old.
Okay.
Just one.
What an amazing, beautiful story you have. And I have to tell you, the thought that your parents loved you so much to send you alone to the United States at 14. I cannot imagine the pain that caused them. But when I think that's part of what love is, right? Like, it's doing that really hard thing for the betterment of a person that you love and care for. So at 14 years old, what was life like for you? And the reason why I asked about you being a mom, because I think also, like, how is your child's life different from yours? I can imagine that they're very different. But first, let's talk about, what was it like for you at 14?
Absolutely. I want to address the part where you so eloquently put that how much my parents loved me to allow themselves to be torn away from me. And that's a lot of what I see in asylum seekers.
Yeah.
And refugees, most people, I mean, a lot of people that don't know the situation, they think that, they don't love their children enough. That's why they put them through so much danger. But it's the absolute opposite.
Well, I think that there's a big disconnect for a lot of people, and I would say in mainstream United States, to really have that understanding of why people would come to the United States, why people seek asylum. And the description that you had about your country and the war, and over 1 million people being killed, and they were killing teenagers. And in South American countries that are the majority of the people that are coming seeking asylum, it's very like they are afraid for their children's lives.
Absolutely. The stories are so similar. Like when I was when I was little, a few years before I migrated, my sister's classmate, she was 16 when she was executed. And this is besides the bombs that are falling on us. Our own government was cracking down on dissidents, and who knows what her crime was. I'm sure it was something super paltry, and they didn't have any they didn't have any trial, no public. Her parents didn't know why they killed her, that kind of a situation. And some of these people that I come across, they have similar stories that, then they saw one of their neighbors get killed by the cartel and they had to leave because they were witnesses, for example. It was just something so simple, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. So yeah, so when I came here, I didn't know English, and that was really crazy. I didn't this The US is so different than Iran. It felt like a different planet for me. And I, for the first few months, I stayed with a very kind American family. And I mean, they were so nice, but I was so homesick and I was so depressed because I really missed everything about home so much. And so it was like one of those situations where I was like, I am going to, deal with all this trauma and hopelessness and depression and everything, because the alternative is to go back to Iran is the worst. So it was kind of a sink or swim situation, and luckily I was able to survive.
Well,
And
and you went to the home of a family that welcomed you,
mm,
and that, I think that's part of what is so hard, because, what the Trump administration's policies did, it was so much against who we've said that the United States is about, in welcoming immigrants and the recognition that immigrants have built this country on stolen land. And it just really ripped apart almost what the promise of America was for
right.
people. And so you landed in a home that was welcoming to you. You came in at a time when the US was open to you.
And they weren't even open then, but this is so much worse now. I mean, my parents had to promise to go back to Iran to my sister, and that's how I got a visa. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given me a visa either. And yeah, but I lived in the fear of being deported for many, many years, even though I was here legally. I can imagine if you're undocumented,
Yeah.
because I had a student visa, and I was like, what if it lapses? What if I do something wrong? What if I can't pay tuition? All those things. So it was very difficult. And then my brother, who I hadn't seen for 10 years because of the war, was here. So after that, I lived with him, and it was like an anthropological experiment, putting two siblings who haven't seen each other for 10 years. So we did our best to make it work. He would, ask me to make him potluck lunches for work, and I would ask him to help me with my chemistry homework. That kind of we just made it work somehow. My son is a typical American preteen, none of those types of hardship that I went through. So of course, but he knows the stories. He's definitely understands the plight of refugees. He supports what I do with the asylums, the programs I'm with the asylum seekers and such. Yeah.
Is he able to join you? Does he participate with you?
He hasn't. He's once in a while when I'm doing the Zoom session, he comes in and he dances with me with them. So so right now we can't go do it in person, so we have to do it in via Zoom. So that's another obstacle. I can't hold the baby so their parents can dance untethered. And I can't hug the families and just stay afterwards for those who need a little more extra support and help.
So how did you go from being 14, living with your brother, and then now doing this work with asylum seekers who are basically, forced to live in Tijuana? What was that transition for you?
So I love, from what you might be able to tell, Rumi with a View is my website. And Rumi was a 13th century ecstatic Persian poet whose poetry runs in my blood and really helps me with all the just letting go and being what I need, doing what I need to do. So what happened was that I came across musical ambassadors of peace, and which started by a couple, Cameron Powers and Christina Sophia. And right after the Iraq invasion, they went to Iraq, actually, and no one would give them a visa. So they broke out the oud, which is a Arabic guitar, a Middle Eastern guitar, and they said, "Here's our visa." And they started playing Iraqi love songs. And they let them in, the Iraqis let them in, and then they just started playing these love songs all over the streets of Baghdad. And people were just floored because they're like, "You're not contractors, you're not military, you're not here to make money off of us, you're just here to learn from us." And so I really became curious about them, and they became curious about me. So we put on some Rumi shows at the height of when anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant sentiments were kind of starting to really take off as a form of edutainment. With stories of my childhood, with poetry, like just very stylized with this world-class musical accompaniment that they provided. And then at the height of the Syrian war, I asked them, well, how can I help? And they said, start a drum circle. And I was like, what? How does a drum circle help refugees? But then it turned out that it was really remarkable. This woman, Christine Stevens, she helped me become a facilitator. And I started running a drum and dance circle in El Cajon for Iraqi, Afghan, Syrian, and Iranian refugees with the help of Delwaz Ahmed, who is an Iraqi refugee herself and an Iraqi immigrant and has license of freedom. And then after that, I was a journalist and I went to Tijuana and I, heard those really heartbreaking stories that from every, LGBTQ asylum seekers, women, children, like someone who was blind because the cartel took their eyes out, that kind of atrocity. And I was like, well, I would like to do something a little bit more than just report on these issues. So I put a team together with the help of musical ambassadors of peace and brought the music to the asylum seekers. Now we play what they love, not what I want to play, the music that they grew up with, so their children can feel safe when they see their parents, let go and just, give all their worries to the ground. We do all these resilience building exercises so people will remember them when they are in challenging situations, such as the detention center. And we build good memories. We use essential oils because the smell is such a powerful reminder. If they even think of peppermint essential oil, their nervous system begins to calm down.
That is amazing. So you're really talking about like all of the senses and using all of the senses to ground. And I love that you talk about building resilience. I also believe that that's the work of healing. Because we're all on the journey. I don't think we ever get to the part or to the point in life when we're healed. I think that we're all on the journey of healing. And just that is so beautiful that you're integrating all of the different components, the body movement, smell, connecting with the earth, and then whatever other techniques it is that you're teaching them. And you call it edutainment. At first, when you said, I was like, edutainment, okay. But you're really teaching the resilience practices.
Yeah, it's a very stealth form of healing because they just think that they're dancing and having fun. But, we put these little messages out there, like shake your stress to the ground. When we sing this way, we boost the immune system. When we do this, it helps you get more, feel the support of your collective community. When we laugh, it reduces our anxiety. So yeah, and then we do use every single sense. At the end, we break bread with them, and it's very ritualized with prayers, and like at the very end we have this circle, we all hold hands and we say, somos una familia sin fronteras. We are one family without borders, and we say that several times. So that message, that sense of belonging is so precious for people who have no home.
It's so beautiful. Sorry. It's just so beautiful. And I think about the kids that are there in that message. Sorry.
Absolutely. The kids are just so remarkable. They taught me a new dance the other day, and then this past Saturday we started dancing the Macarena, which I had totally forgotten. I haven't danced that in like 20 years. So that was like, and they're so cute and so engaged, and their parents are so engaged, and just to see them just, flower and smile and laugh and really let their worries go is so wonderful. And we just try to keep, giving them the message, you are welcome, you are wanted.
Well, and I love that, like, we're a family without borders, which is what humanity is. And I really think like children are our medicine. Like seeing my granddaughters is I just need to see them in a picture. I just need to close my eyes and imagine their smiles in their eyes, and it's enough. Like it's that medicine for my soul. And I think also like that is what, our children are what we build our lives and our future for. And so to have children that we know are refused entry into this country, so that they could their families can build a life and keep them alive. It's something that's just very it's very hard, but also I'm so grateful that you are there. And Music Without is it Music Without Borders? What's the name of the group again?
Musical Ambassadors of Peace.
Musical ambassadors, thank you, are giving them this because it's so beautiful. Everything that you're talking about, the eating together, the ritual, the prayers, the connection, and the very strategic, the action within, like, because you're sliding the learning in there, you're sliding the strategies for like relieving stress. And I think that's something that we need to see in organizations and in businesses and in our systems, is really like using music, using all of those senses to relieve the stress that we carry. And granted, the stress that our our refugees, our asylum seekers are experiencing is very different. Stress is stress. And so having these really beautiful techniques, I think, is something that's important.
Absolutely. Well, we see a lot of results from it, and for activists and those who are on this side, I really do encourage this kind of effortlessness and moving with joy, and because we don't want to have burnout, right? So what is pleasurable is sustainable. And we want sustainable activism. So anything that would allow us to just keep tapping into the joy, tapping into that sense of well-being is so important. And you do so beautifully with what you do. And rituals are such a huge part of it. Community rituals. We grew up, it's in our DNA. Our ancestors were all about rituals, and it even works on people who don't believe in rituals. So rituals and being in nature, you incorporating the senses and such. I've started this series of A Moment of Joy, just like a 30-second thing that I've been doing on Instagram, and it's been super fun. So just to give a glimpse of, what is available to us, and infinite and free, can be such a great resource for us to recharge and orient ourselves.
Can you share one of your 30-second moments of joy with us? And then also, so we can, is it Rumi with a View on Instagram?
Rumi with a View on Instagram. Yeah. I mean, they're little videos. Do you want me to describe them? Or?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So the first one I did was on how I moved my office outside to the front yard. I said I've been exiled to the front yard because everyone is on Zoom inside. So but I have like I'm wearing my red scarf and I have rose-colored glasses and I have a hummingbird feeder on my shoulder, and so hummingbirds are coming and visiting me as I'm typing on my laptop, and the postman came and he had a good laugh of the way that I'm like dressed and sitting there, and just the hummingbirds really do demand that we stay still, and that moment of stillness is so necessary. So when they do come, I just have to be really still so they can drink, and then I go back to what I need to be doing. So that's just like a 30 seconds, several times a day that happens. And it's really is joyful and wonderful.
Well, because that moment of communion, of connection, and I love that they demand that you be still for you to have it.
Right.
Like that's something that they need in order to have that beautiful connection with them. One of my favorite and quotes from Rumi, it is something, I think it's the wound is the place where the light enters you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was Father Greg Boyle from Homeboy Industries. I had heard him speak at their Global Homeboy Network, and he shared that, and it really blew me away. And what I've come to learn is I think also that the wound is the place, not only where the light enters you, but it's where you meet yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's where we have that opportunity to really get to know ourselves and get to know both the beautiful things about us and the things that are keeping us from being beautiful.
You're so right. Do you want me to share a line of Rumi's poetry in Farsi, because it has its own thing? Yeah. And this is one of my favorite, which relates to the line that you said. ای قوم به حج رفته کجایید کجایید، معشوق همینجاست بیایید بیایید، با این همه آن رنج شما گنج شما باد، افسوس که بر گنج شما پرده شمایید. O pilgrims on your way to Hajj, come back, your beloved is right here. Did you know that your suffering is your treasure? Did you know that your suffering is your treasure? Alas, you are the veil covering your treasure.
I'm writing that down. I just want to imagine a world, Ari, where people are willing to go into their suffering. And
yes, that's where the good stuff is. Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
And so can you just share with me, for you, how has that come out in your life?
Yeah, I spent most of my adult life just studying the nature of suffering. Why do we suffer, and how to alleviate it? But I really love the Rumi approach, because it feels so true to me that maybe suffering is here not to be alleviated, but to be honored and to be completely respected for what it is. And just as with any other guest that arrives in us, once we offer our deep respect and once we honor them, they do transform. Guests don't stay. They do transform. They go, and happiness doesn't stay. Depression doesn't stay, as long as we really welcome every state and see every state as sacred.
I agree. I agree with that so much. So I think it's so important to honor your feelings. And I have, for whatever reason, and I'm starting to discover the reasons, but anger is one of those emotions that I've never really learned how to honor within myself. And so just, starting to do the work of that, honoring, like you said, honoring depression, honoring joy, honoring sadness, honoring heartbreak, because it's not permanent. It's something that exists, and it can feel like it exists because time is very tricky. It can feel like it exists, when you are in the throes of deep heartbreak. It feels like every minute is an hour, and every hour is a day, and every day has been a week. And it's just that it's a very painful thing to go through. But by honoring it, I think changing that perspective of, instead of like really just because you're in it, but when you honor it and recognize that it's not going to last, that feeling, that ache, that all of those things that you feel physically, it doesn't last, just like with the beauty of joy. And I find myself sometimes, before the pandemic, during one of my very good friends, he had a school break, and I went with him and his kids. We went to IKEA, and his daughter is my goddaughter, so I wanted to buy her something. So his wife was working on her school stuff. They're both educators, and it was such a beautiful afternoon. So we went to IKEA. We were able to pick out, the easel that she wanted, the paints that she wanted. I think we went and we got lunch somewhere. We went to like In-N-Out, and it was so beautiful, that moment. And all I could think of was, I was like, oh, we have to do this every time they have a break. Like, we have to have this time. We have to. And I had to stop myself because I knew that I wasn't honoring the moment that I was in. And so this reminder from Rumi about suffering, and when you said that, you want to alleviate suffering, but the idea really is that we honor our suffering and we honor what we've been through and the things that you have been through in your life, to be able to turn that into, I don't even know if it's turning something, but the way that you've been able to transform your experiences, as difficult and as hard as they've been. What was the foundation that was set for you, either in your family or even just that you were born with, that has allowed you to take this transformation of all of the pain that you've carried in your life and all of the fear and the darkness into the actions that you're taking now?
Thank you. Yeah, one thing that I'd like to, before I forget, talking about these states that come are not that are not necessarily pleasant, is that we sometimes are very resistant to them, and we don't really know that we're resistant to them, and that's why they last much longer than they normally would. Now, to honor the resistance is where our starting point then can be, like it's like, I acknowledge resistance and I honor it, and I'm so happy that it's here. Because when there is resistance, right underneath it, there is a level of vulnerability and a wound that the resistance is trying to protect. So it's a benevolent state also, but it just it hasn't learned how to protect and honor the whole being. So it's just this beautiful dance that we keep we keep going through. And like, it's so funny because the whole dancing has become a type of a serenity prayer for me, like a zikr of sort. It invites me to pivot and flow with what I cannot control. It reminds me to summon every part of me to what I must change, not leaving anything small or trivial behind. And it points me toward this stillness, from which movements arise, and the silence from which music emanates. And I think that's the thing. It's just my whole. The more I kind of become more accustomed to being a human on this earth, the better I become dancing with whatever is presenting itself to me. And it's been a very long, journey, but I'm here and I'm still dancing.
But not only, I think it's just also that piece of your dancing in community and creating community through dancing, and then continuing to support others and creating that community. And that beautiful way that you talked about of learning, I think, and singing the songs and providing the music of the land of the people who are seeking asylum, so that their children can connect back to their land and carry that piece with them. It's so important.
It is. Musical Ambassadors of Peace has even a program at one point in Palestine or in the refugee camps, I think in Jordan or Syria, and it was for Palestinian children who, had forgotten the indigenous songs of Palestine, and they were teaching them so they would stay with them. The tradition wouldn't die.
And that's part of the intentionality of that is so important, because that is by not being intentional about the language, about our songs, about our stories, documenting them and sharing them. That's how cultures have been lost. And so the intentionality of keeping them alive, I think, is really beautiful. And it's such an important part of, I think, really supporting our asylum seekers and our refugees, keeping them connected to their land and their home.
Absolutely. There is when there is no songs, we have stories, right? And it's so important to tell stories. And part of the reason I wrote my novel, which will come out next September, is those stories that for my son and for his children, to know where his family came from. Yeah.
So you also talked about the cards that you have, your Rumi cards that are, it sounded like a mixture. So they're tarot cards. And yes, can you talk about those? And I think so. So let me just also just say this really quick. That to me also talks to your connection to spirit and your connection. I think some people call it potentially being an empath, but just that very deep spiritual connection that starts from self and I think goes to our ancestors and the spirit world. So can you talk about that process and how the cards came about?
So I wanted to fit in so badly when I first moved here that I pretty much lost my poetry. Whereas when poetry is part of every Iranian person's fiber of being, like we recite poems at funerals, at celebrations, at dinner table, in resolving conflicts, and then it was when I think when my father died, when I felt all that grief and heartbreak, and I could hear Rumi's resonant voice in my head, and I just started really reciting in Farsi. In every, just spontaneously something would come out, and people actually were, I was surprised. I thought like they would say, who's this crazy woman? But it turned out that they're like, tell us what that means. So I started translating it, and someone said, oh wow, that's like Rumi with a view. So that's became my website. And then the next thing I knew was like I started doing these paintings of Rumi's words in Farsi and turn them into images. And then so I was translating, painting, and then I teamed up with another San Diego artist, Carmen Costello, and painted some more. So about half of the deck is our collaboration. And then I have little stories that have been passed down to me by my ancestors, and also a bunch of every poem has a poem in action, which is a meditation to really sit with that poem and just further explore the meaning. And so it has a little booklet and it has like the paintings, and the cards kind of look like, there are the poem cards. I don't know if you can see.
Okay.
And then a bunch of painting cards.
Those are beautiful. So is the idea with them, so, like most tarot cards, there's a connection if somebody has a question that they want to have answered, or they want to know something about their future, or make a connection with something in their past. Is that the idea with your cards as well?
They're oracle cards. I don't know very much about tarot myself, but what we do in Farsi when you have a question in Iran, we usually use a Hafiz book, which is another Persian poet, to ask our question and open the book to a page, and it will tell us the answer. And kind of like Dao De Ching too. And then what these are similar. People use them as pick a card in the morning, and that will be the theme for their meditation that day. Like work is, that's what I got, so that's what I'm gonna, like, what comes to me for work. Or people use them as in their yoga practice, a yoga practitioner, and also therapists use them with their with their clients to just kind of tap into that Jungian psychology of images and visions and such.
And so I went ahead and I put the website Rumi with a View, and you said that your book is coming out next September, and the book is Stories of Your Life.
It kind of is, although it's not it's fiction, literary fiction with magical realism, and it's called A Girl Called Rumi. It's very feministic, because when I was 6, women of Iran lost their right to ride a bicycle or sing in public. So that's when I really got my fire going. It's like, what? I can't play with my best friend who's a boy. So I cut my hair and I pretended to be a boy for a while. So that's kind of where it starts, and it has a lot of poetry in it, and this whole journey of going through different obstacles to find your true self.
One of the things that I think about with people is that when we meet other people, they're a reflection of us. And I think especially when we make connections with people, and the beautiful connections that you must make with people, both through Rumi with a View, through that work, and your work as a musical ambassador, specifically with your asylum seekers and either whomever it is. But can you just share a moment that you absolutely saw that in practice, like saw that reflection of yourself coming back at you?
Every time. Well, pretty much this happens to me all the time. Anyone who meet, I really see myself, an aspect of myself in them. But the most beautiful mirrors are the asylum seekers, I think, because every time I go there, I'm like, they're giving me the gifts. I just feel so much. I see so much beauty and so much potential in them. So yeah, and I'm going this Wednesday with, I don't know if you know Enrique Morones, who is the founder of Border Angels, and we're with Gente Unida. So we're gonna go there and to 3 different shelters. I'm so looking forward to it.
And Border Angels is an organization that Enrique Morones started, and they provide water. They go out into the desert and they leave water, and they provide support for people who are making the difficult crossing. And they've had a lot of political, I would say political issues. But really, this is about humanity. They've done the work of, of trying to let people who are crossing in really heavy desert, in the heat or in the extreme cold, know that they're not alone, and that there's somebody else in this world that cares for them and is supporting them through their journey. It's really amazing work, and it's amazing work that you're doing through Music with Ambassadors. What are some ways that if people were interested in supporting, what are some things that they could do or wanting to be involved?
Of course. So there are 3 shelters that are main focus right now, and all of them have children with lots of families with young children, and so they're each of we try to provide customized support for them. One of them wants to have a very sustainable garden, so use a great water system and chickens. So we're buying chickens and other things for them. There's this foundation called Healing Hands Foundation, and it's part of the Terra essential oils, and they're supporting us by matching every cent that we get for these projects, for these shelters, just to make the place more safe, more healing, more inviting for people who have to stay there. So genteunida.net is the way to go if you want to donate to them. And of course, musicalambassadorsofpeace.org is another one.
I'm just trying to get those down, Ambassadors of Peace. And so if people wanted to donate online, they could donate to either of those two websites.
They can, because with Musical Ambassadors of Peace, when we go to shelters, we never go empty-handed. We always bring donations, because if people are worried about their survival when their next meal is coming, they're not ready to dance. They're not, it's just not a suitable environment for that kind of activity. So yeah, we always ask shelters what they want. And right now we just make monetary donation via PayPal to them, because we're not going there as much. But definitely we do support them. We want them to feel comfortable about asking when they need extra support.
So pre-COVID, you were actually doing donations of goods. So pre-COVID, you were able to take things out. I imagine diapers and things for the babies, clothing, whatever else they might need, the moms, sanitary products, any of those toiletries, like all of the things that people need. But right now, the best way to donate is through cash donations.
Right, and we do still take other types of donations. It just doesn't happen as frequently. Sometimes it does. Sometimes, people are going and we find volunteers who will take them, and it's amazing. But they always need cash, because there's always like a toilet that's leaking, a roof that needs repair. There's just so many logistics. So we always also bring cash to the shelters.
So if anybody wanted to get involved with the Musical Ambassadors for Peace and wanted to go and dance or play an instrument, would they just connect with, do you have a website? Is it through Facebook? How would they be able to do that?
I would suggest going to musicalambassadorsofpeace.org and just ask them to connect with me, and we'll figure out how best we can support them, supporting the asylum seekers.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about, with Thanksgiving coming up. So here, you'll see a lot of people that want to volunteer at food shelters or want to donate at food shelters during the holidays. And I always think about, like there's 360 other days out of the year that people support.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's good for us to be around to remind people of that once in a while, those shelters, whether it's homeless shelters or refugee shelters, they definitely need help year round.
So I think this might be our last question. So with everything that's happening in this world, both with your work, but also the pandemic and your family, I'm sure your son is in some kind of a school environment. How are you doing? How are you?
Oh, what a sweet question. I'm doing remarkably well, because I am practicing those kinds of the part of us that has a negativity bias. I want to just shift our attention to what's wrong and what's bad. I have learned to do the opposite, shift my attention to what's right. And it's just become kind of an ingrained habit now. And when bad things do happen, which of course they do, then it becomes this kind of an opportunity to be like, oh, how am I responding to this? What am I doing? Am I being vulnerable? Am I not? And it just kind of, I just tweak however I'm responding to circumstances. My son's doing surprisingly well, unlike most kids that I know with online learning. He's not super academic, but he doesn't mind it. And he's really into skateboarding, so that gets his physical activity out of the way every day.
Well, and my daughter's also doing really well with the online. She's starting to miss the social component, but initially she did really, really well. And this has been an interesting time to learn about ourselves and to learn about our families in a deeper way that I don't think we were expecting. And regarding what you were saying, like that piece of when you're not okay or like there's negativity coming in, recognizing it. And I think what's so beautiful, there's a quote by Viktor Frankl. He wrote A Man's Search for Meaning, I believe is the title. And what he said in that book, the last of your freedoms in this world is to choose how you respond.
Exactly, yeah.
And so there's a lot in this world that we don't control. I think we like to think that we control a lot, but ultimately what we control is ourselves and how we respond. And I love that you talked about how you're taking care of yourself and how you're doing by really being aware of how you are responding to things. And I think there's that moment, right? When something hits you and you're like there's something that happens that lets you know that you're not okay. And then allows you then to go through those steps of processing into figuring out then how are you going to react and respond. So we can make the choice to stay not okay if that's feeling some kind of a need that we have at the moment. But I love that it's an intentional choice and an intentional response.
True. And I would like to add to that. And even if we don't respond the way that we think we should have in a situation, then how are we responding to our own judgment of that, So there's always room to respond to whatever is happening right at this very moment.
I love that. I talk a lot about, because to me, it's almost like giving ourselves permission, right? Like giving ourselves permission and giving ourselves a break, because really, like in life, I've just kind of learned, like, people aren't going to give you a break, but you got to give yourself a break. And you have to recognize that in yourself. I love that you said that.
Thank you.
Ari, it was so beautiful talking to you. I cannot wait till I can join you in the dancing. I love dancing. I love being able to move. I love how music feels in my bones and in the fibers of my muscles and my body, and the ability to move to music. It's such a gift. And to be a part of a community where music is used for healing. And I also, I'm going to tap into you again, because you have so much strength and so much knowledge around these different practices that keep us grounded and help build resilience. And it's something that we need in this world. So I'm going to figure out how to work with you.
Please do. I ever since George Floyd, I started giving resilience building sessions to activists for George Floyd, and I've been doing it all over the country, and I've been doing workshops, and I would love to work with you on that. And I think we're on the same page, and as soon as we can go dance, I will let you know so we can go together.
Yes, and here's a last message before we leave. Thank you, Ari. Your work is amazing. Your story is encouraging to all of us. Mil gracias. And that is actually my aunt, who is one of the loves of my life, who is sending you that message. So she will, once we're all able to, I'm going to bring my tia with me, because she would love nothing more than to dance with our babies and our women and men who are seeking asylum. Ari, thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Marisol. Thank you so much.
So beautiful. Thank you for who you are in this world and who you are to our people that are most pushed out in the margins right now. Thank you for what you're doing and bringing dance and hope. Woo! So I'm going to say good night from here. So I will see everybody on Wednesday. Please remember, and Adi, if you haven't yet, our next town hall is going to be on December 3rd, and we're going to have it's going to be an evening with Dolores Huerta, and just a really beautiful evening. So I invite you all to register, and I will see you on Wednesday. Please know that you are loved and you are cared for. Good night.